All right, for anyone who's
All
not
right, all
aware,
right.
Ben, you should introduce yourself.
Hi, I'm Ben. I used to work on Overwatch League. I was the stats producer, and I make the stats lab and all that stuff. Now I work as an analyst on the Overwatch team itself.
Is
Um,
that better? Sorry, I was turning you up. Is he good? Can you
oh,
hear
am I
him?
too low?
No, I turned you up. You're good. You're good now? All right.
All
You're
right.
good.
All right. So IBM Watson is the thing that I was working on the off in the off season with the IBM dudes who are super smart. They're all like senior data scientists, senior software engineer people. Um, what we did is we fed it all of the Overwatch League stats that we have, and we told it to try to figure out what sort of weights when multiplied by these stats translate into wins, kind of like you were saying, Scott. Um, they they had to do a bunch of adjustments, kind of similar to how player impact rating works. Like they had to know that deaths are bad, and that generally in Overwatch, if a team is doing better, it's also at the cost of the other team. So it's gonna be kind of hard to find a good player on a bad team with this, but the best players on the best teams will still look to be the best. So it takes all this data and it shoved it into. They have this crazy thing at Watson where it's not just like one machine learning model; it's like all of them. I know that there were at least seven, but there are probably more. And it shoves it into this thing, and it tries like every model and every sort of weighting in those models to pick out the best one. It was pretty nuts.
Oh, okay. So
And
it's like
kind
it does
of,
7 different iterations of learning, and then it sort of takes the best
no, no, no,
one.
no, 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 no. It does like a bajillion different iterations of learning with seven different methods.
That's a lot
But
more than I thought. Oh, yeah, okay.
yeah, yeah, yeah. I mean, that's machine learning for you. It does like crazy amounts of iterations to optimize, right?
Yeah.
But the coolest thing about it, to me at least, is I used a portion of my old PIR stuff to do those match predictions we used to do. Remember?
Yeah.
Um, and I was pretty happy with the performance of that because when I was using that as a seed to like a matchup predictor model that I was optimizing, it was outperforming 538's NBA and NFL models and stuff. And
Oh, wow.
then for IBM Watson, um, I asked them to like kind of spit out performance measured in the same way, and theirs was like an order of magnitude better than mine. It was like crazy, and
So,
that was just like a rough estimate for them. They hadn't even tuned it specifically for that like purpose, and it was already doing that well.
so for right now, it can give us like player score rating. Obviously, so it's learnt everything from last season. So you just threw all the data in from last season, and now is it
Mhm.
sort of like in a more perfected state where now when you input the new data from this season, it already has the answer to like how they want the algorithm to be.
Yeah, so it has all the weights that it's learned from all the previous seasons of OWL. It's applying it now, but it's going to be continuing to learn throughout this season. And it isn't taking their previous ratings into account. We cut it off season by season, but it still has learned from the previous ones.
Next
So that's,
important
yeah.
question is so if you fed it previous seasons, does that mean it's looked at my performances in the past?
Yeah, you would be
Can,
on here. I
can,
mean, you can't see it, but you're in there somewhere.
I'm sure I'm number one. It's fine. Don't worry about that.
I seem to remember your stage four season one data being all right.
Yeah, not bad. My Mercy one trick. You guys remember that shit? That was OP. All right, so and is it going to eventually like? So obviously for right now we don't have like much, but it's gonna have like match predictions. Like surely it'll be able to like do the math and be like, it is most likely going to be this team wins with this record and like this probabilities and shit like that. Kind of like what yours used to do.
Mm, I don't know what I can and can't say because I'm not sure. Basically,
Okay.
I'm not sure how far they're going to get with it, but that is definitely a potential thing you can do with this.
Uh,
It isn't just player ratings; it can do the other things.
is it out there? What is the most impactful stats? Like what it came to the conclusion of how it does the ratings? Is there like a list of like, yo, this a first kills
No,
versus this?
it's totally a black box at this point.
Okay.
I because it's all under the machine learning stuff, right? But I can tell you that when I did player impact rating, I think final blows was what I actually bounced it around. Like
Okay.
I wanted to make final blows worth a certain point value, and then made everything kind of relative to that. I'm not saying that Watson did that. I have no idea what Watson did. The only thing I can probably tell you is the deaths are definitely negative.
Yeah. Okay, that's sweet. That's what I would have done as well. So I'm almost there
Yeah.
as a data scientist. Birdering is apparently the worst DPS player of the weekend. Wow. That's kind of crazy.
He's probably gonna suffer a bit because he didn't play every map, right? So the way that you'll be really high or really low in Watson specifically right now in this single week like sample size is if you were above the cutoff, which I think right now is 5% of your team's maps played or something like that.
Okay.
I think we're going to increase it as we get deeper into the season. So Birdring was just above that cutoff, but also just played in maps that they tended to lose. And then Jimmy was the opposite.
So
that's why he's all the way at the top.
Are you saying if you play less maps and you're above that cutoff, your number's going to be lower? So it's not just like map by map.
It doesn't have to do with maps played. It just means that he has more potential to be lower because it's a variance thing.
Oh, okay. So he has less sample size, so therefore it has potential. And that's why it skews different for Jimmy. Yeah, okay, I understand that. Okay, sweet.
The ratings will look better and better the deeper we get into the season. Right now, everything's fucking insane.
Yeah. It's like you shouldn't look at this and be like, Birdering is not an our level DPS. That's not what you should not just start yelling at.
God. Yeah.
Yeah, and it's like the same thing. Like Shock is not. Where is Shock on here? The 7th best team in our according to Watson.
If I remember, there might be just a team version of it. Yeah, there you go.
Yeah, down the bottom. Yeah.
The interesting thing about this is it actually has shuffled the rankings relative to the actual rankings on the regular website, like just wins losses.
Yeah.
Like I think Chengdu and Philly have the same map win rating, but
really?
it actually has Philly down at 5. So whatever Chengdu was doing in its wins was more stompy than whatever Philly was doing. And then Florida, Toronto, and Houston allegedly had better games than Fusion did, even though the map record doesn't match up that way.
Yeah. No, okay, that's cool. That's cool. So this is going to be updated on the Monday of every week.
I think that it's definitely weekly. I think it's going to be Mondays. I can't say for every what time necessarily.
Yeah.
I do think that there may be some historical aspect to it too. That's being talked about. And what else is there about Watson that's cool?
Crib third to bottom.
One of the best things you can do with this actually is to see where players land relative to the rest of their teammates.
Yeah. So it's like
so you could say you want to if you want to grade a player, it's kind of a better way to do that, at least at this early point, because that way you see you should probably see you just watched the Shock game, right?
Yeah.
You should see that Happy and Janggu are high up on it, right? Among the outlaw players.
Yeah, Happy is really high. Dante wasn't as impactful though, and then you can go further down. There was someone else played for them, right? Who's their other? They play it. There
will sometimes be surprises.
Yeah.
Where maybe someone's performance sticks in your mind more because they had one good play, but maybe someone else was more consistent. The other features to know about it is the average for both the team and the players and split into the roles is set to 100. So that you know that a player who's at 100 is league average. And then anyone above it is that percent above it.
Okay. So it's a percentage thing.
Same thing for the teams. And then your rating across roles is weighted and rolled up into your overall. So for players like Violet, who played multiple roles, most of his rating at the overall will be from support, but some of it will be from damage as well.
So it combines his damage and his support. It doesn't have two separate ratings. Okay.
That's correct. I mean, it does, but for when it goes to the overall rating, it'll roll up.
Interesting.
So you should, you see him on damage, and you should see him on support as well.
Yeah. So he'll have the same one. If he was 92, he should be.
It won't be.
He's 111 on support, but 92 on DPS.
So it'll be 111 on his support, weighted by how much time he played support, and combined with the 93 on damage, weighted by how much he played damage.
Yeah. Okay, makes sense. That makes sense. Nice. And it only shows 30 people right now. Is it going to be like that for the whole time, where they only show 30 people, or as more people play, they're going to?
right it the only filter that's going to be on it is a like how often did you start filter. So like right now you won't be able to find Jake because he's too low. He
Yeah,
didn't
he played
swim
one
enough
map.
maps.
Yeah, okay.
So there'll be filters like that. I think, like I said, I think that they have it set to 5% of maps played right now, which I think is too low. So I'm advising them to increase it over time. I think in the past I've used anywhere between 30 and 50%, but we'll see what seems right
Yeah, that makes sense.
with eyeballing it. But we're still tracking all that stuff for sure, because that kind of stuff goes into the team ranking.
Yeah. Oh, nice.
Yeah.
Oh, cool. Thanks. I appreciate you coming in to explain it because, as I said, you heard my start of a scuffed explanation of what this was.
Well,
so.
this is a dry run. Do you know Nick wants me to come on Watchpoint on Saturday and basically do the same thing?
Someone just said that you should do it. And I think it would be really interesting, like if you can like start explaining it just so that people like can understand it in a better way. Because like right now people are just like looking at the numbers and they don't know what that means. And I think the most important thing is to get away, put on the idea of it's like AI learning algorithm. So it's like it's ran the numbers rather than just like us in the back of Overwatch League being like, what number do we think is important? You know?
Yeah, this is the spiritual successor to player impact rating, which was just like me with very educated opinion, at least setting the weights and eyeballing it. But yeah, this is actually like we're totally hands off at this point. It's all those machine learning algorithms improving itself over time, sort of thing.
Someone asked a question, is this like, I know you said something similar, but is the model going to change at all throughout the season, or is it going to learn throughout the season and then change it for next season or something like that?
It relearns every week.
Yeah, okay.
So it'll be the weights
Skynet.
that have the weights that have seeded these ratings today are not the same that'll be used tomorrow, because it'll have this past week's data to learn from too.
All right, how many years until it replaces me on the desk?
It won't do that. Don't worry about it.
Nice.
I don't think Watson has as good of a haircut.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. It will get it. It'll machine learn how to. Does Watson learn from balance changes that are made by Blizzard?
It will kind of learn that over time, because the heroes that players play will change over time. One thing that we do need to keep aware of with it is to, like, it'll learn how to adjust the weights over time. Like, say we made, like, I don't know, McCree do double the damage that he does.
Please
It'll
okay.
It'll suddenly notice that a lot more players are playing McCree, but it'll still be judging all those players on McCree's performance against each other.
Yeah.
So when the whole group plays the same way, then you'll still have people that stand out more than others, and so it ends up normalizing by that.
Yeah.
The thing that we do need to be aware of is if and when we add new heroes to the game, it has to know what stats those heroes have.
Yeah.
But
okay.
that's easy enough. We just like tell them, hey, there's a new hero coming, and like these are the IDs that you need to pull into the model and all that stuff. But it won't have any prior weights to those, so things might be a little funky for a while.
Yeah. Oh, someone on ABG asked a good question. How finely does the pass data depending on maps? So it's like, obviously, if we're on like King of the Hill, everyone dies really quickly compared to 2CP, where there's like a lot of just like slow phase brawl and that kind of stuff. Like, does it recognize map and like coefficients are different depending on the maps and the game type?
I can say I can't say for sure. I do know that we give them map data, we give them time played data, so it is entirely possible that the model would learn stuff based on those features.
Interesting.
Yeah. I mean, it's all a matter of like what are we giving it? We're giving it categorical data, which is like, is this player on, or is this player Jinmu, or is this player leave? And we give it, or like, is this map horizon? I keep naming things that aren't in the game right now. This is and then you give it data like how much hero damage did they get, and that's more of like that could be anything, right?
Yeah.
So it's
Ah, so cool. I don't know if maybe I'm just biased and too stupid to appreciate it in its complexity, but the thing that excites me is this could make the world's greatest fantasy league if it becomes like once it's learnt enough and it like has enough thing and it perfects the algorithm, dude, like I can't all of a sudden blame the stupid system for not giving me the right amount of points for stuff. So I'm excited. I think there's so many cool things that can come out of it.
That's actually a funny story. The whole reason that player impact rating came to be was we had there was a group of us that kind of did like a mini hackathon early on in season one where we just tried to make a fantasy system, and we ended up not going with it. But like that system was kind of like the precursor to player impact rating, which then IBM Watson is kind of like the like production level thing of that.
Yeah,
So
like an actual company version
yeah.
of that.
Mm-hmm. I think the thing that I want out of Watson the most, and we'll see if we ever get to this or not, is just having this stat as a like. Okay, so these stats are a rate. So these are normalized by time.
Yeah.
So that if so, like say like call it like Watson points or something. Jimmu scored 157 Watson points per 10 minutes or whatever it is.
Yeah.
Imagine if we decoupled it from time and then we just looked at a single map or a single match. All the players played the same amount of time, and then you could literally see with this stat who had the best game of that series.
Map.
So you go back and see they're like, oh, Happy really popped off. He had like 1,000 Watson points or whatever.
So
like,
coming into the desk, we could be like, hey, here's this map. Look at the impact ratios of this map from the 6 players, and you can have it 6 side by side instead of being like, this guy had gold damage, this person had gold healing. Like it would have weighted. That'd be really cool.
It would be like the first thing that we put in every player of the match card, in my opinion. So that'd be like the kind of thing we want to do.
Interesting. How in depth does it go into like statistical analysis? So someone just asked, can Watson tell between the example of canceling an alt sleep and just a regular sleep? So if I just shoot a Winston with a sleep from across the map, does it recognize if the impact is bigger if he's primaling and then I sleep him?
It is limited by the stats that actually exist in the game. So that sort of context is not something that exists, but that's more of an Overwatch problem than a Watson problem.
Yeah.
Does it pull data second by second, or does it pull it? I think right now it's pulling on an aggregate, but I mean this is something that I shouldn't even be saying this because I really don't know the answer.
That's okay.
But it could tell that you slept. It could tell an aggregate of like how many sleeps you had, but not the context around them necessarily.
Okay.
Wobble wobble, motherfucker.
I think that's
actually a good point.
Yeah.
Nice being number 2.
The stat has to exist in the game for it to know it. Is the main takeaway there.
Yeah. Okay, that makes sense. Nice being number 2 is kind of
Xenon 54 said if it affects the win rate, the AI will recognize it. That's a true statement. That is something it works.
Okay, so it's like, as much as there's not like he slept him and therefore his impact ratio went up, he slept him and therefore they were more likely to win the map, so therefore his impact ratio went up, right? Like, does that make sense?
Yep. Right. Or wait, what'd you say? Sorry, I was totally zoned out.
No, that's fine. Hey, that's fine. You agree with me, so I can sound smart. But yeah, all right, sweet. That sounds good to me. Is there anything else that we need to know before it takes over our jobs?
I don't think so, unless chat has any more questions.
Yeah, does anyone have any questions for Ben? For people who are asking who it is CaptainPlanet. He was the person who sort of made the system before IBM Watson, the player impact ratio, and he helped make IBM Watson and help these people create this system right now.
Surely, okay, Lego MBR says, surely you can measure the impact of abilities by looking at time between landing a cooldown and winning a fight. You would think that, except that we don't track ability usage. That is a very weird thing about Overwatch. I can't tell when someone used an ability.
Really?
Not really. You can track when their ability count goes up, but not every ability has an ability count to it. Only ultimates do. So it's just a quirk of how Overwatch stats are on the back end.
Interesting. Seems like a pretty big flaw. Well, that's not an IBM Watson issue. That's an Overwatch data issue, right?
Yeah. It's as I understand it, there's actually this really cool talk at GDC about how Overwatch is programmed, it's related to that. Like it makes Overwatch run crazy good. Like its netcode is kind of like best in class in the FPS genre, but its stats are just very, very hard to write in a sense. So it's harder to make stuff like that work. And I'm not a developer, and so you'd have to ask them how it actually works. But that's how I understand it.
Yeah.
Someone's asking me about Overwatch 2 stuff. I'm not going to comment on that. Very nice try though.
Yeah, almost got him.
Does it take opponent strength into account? That I am not sure of. That would be something that I can ask the IBM people about. When will we be able to click on a player and see the 2020 or 2021 stats, since we can only see 2019 in inaugural? I'm not sure what you're saying about the 2019. This should only be 2021 visible for Watson, right?
No, I think they're talking about the stats. So if I click on someone's page, it shows me all the stats of their history of their career.
That stats page is effectively dead, I think. If you want stats like that, you should use the stats lab.
Oh, okay. So moral of the story is that we should fix that, because that's kind of interesting.
That thing, I don't think that works anymore.
It looks cool, but I wouldn't use it. Don't use it for anything.
Does this decide MVP? No, but it is an input. It should just be something that it is like. So, for example, we all know that Happy had a crazy game against Shock, and that he had a crazy game against the field too. But right now, Watson doesn't have him rated as highly as some other DPS because those matches were close. So we know both things because we're humans. So we can say like, oh, it's Happy in the MVP conversation. Like that's the kind of stuff you should be talking about with Watson. We're not just going to pick Jinmu if he's at the top of Watson's rankings at the end of the year, right?
Damn it. Jimmo almost had us. He almost had the MVP until Ben snatched it away from him. But yeah, it'll be used as a tool to help us make an evaluation. And that's what's most exciting about it. You shouldn't look at this and be like, who is the best player? You should be able to look at it and be like, okay, overall, generally, like you can discern ideas and opinions from it, but it's not like a final thing.
If MK Ultra 25 asks, if we look at Philly players, we can say their supports played best relatively because they're the highest. I would say yes, except I'd just say they perform the best according to Watson. There's a lot of things that go into stuff. Like I think Watson does a really good job on the overall, and I think within the roles, I think it ranks flex supports the best. I think it's probably weakest on the tanks. But tank is like notoriously hard to quantify, right?
It feels like main supports are also being rated way lower than flex supports. Like in general, it feels like the flex supports are higher ranked than the main supports. Like it's not by much, but it's like, you know, they're like, you can see the people in the same.
It's kind of an effect of there are simply more things to be measured as a flex support than a main support, because you're generally doing like damage and getting a lot of different types of assists and stuff. So it's having an easier job separating who's really good on flex support than who's really good on main support.
Yeah. Something that is very confusing is they really need to update the pictures. I'm like looking at Lastro and I'm like, yo, Lastro popped off for the Valiant, baby. Let's go. Valiant support. Oh, wait, never mind. He plays for Toronto now. So
I can pass that feedback along.
Yeah, because I'm sure that's going to confuse a lot of people.
Is there a clutch factor? Not that I'm aware of. Can this be broken down by hero? Maybe in the future. Right now, probably not enough data. In baseball, WAR is seen as a silver bullet of sorts, but would you say Watson's scoring is less valuable at determined value than WAR? Yeah, in a sense. This is not trying to quantify the same thing, but it is kind of balanced in the same that you're trying to measure, like, not necessarily replacement player, but a league average player, regardless of role that they play. I hope that answers that. Is player location data tracked so you can run analysis on different teams? Something sightlines. Yeah, but also it's been very hard to visualize that, because another quirk of Overwatch is that I have coordinates of where players are. This is actually something they built into L, like I think 2 seasons or 3 seasons in. I can get locations at any point in time. I get locations of who gets a kill and who died, But the problem is those coordinates, they're a bunch of numbers, but there's no origin point. I don't know where the origin is on every map, nor do I have top-down maps.
So it's useless. It just gives you numbers.
Yes and no. I did do an article last year about there is still stuff you can do with relative things. It was really annoying and really tough, but I tried to quantify how closely together teams play, and then try to categorize like who was in the main team group and then who was flanking. And it kind of had some interesting outcomes. Like I could kind of quantitatively show that Decay was playing like further out from his team than most other tracers for like a given week, and that it worked well for them. But it ends up being more of like a team style thing than like a success thing.
Yeah.
Yeah, you could use proximity. That's what I did. It would be so nice to yell at someone because of their Watson in game. Please don't do that. Also, I cannot say if it's going in the game or not. Not to my knowledge.
Yeah.
In this scheme, quantifies player synergy. I don't know.
Not, right? When
It's more, I would say,
they win maps, it would quantify that, and that would therefore mean synergy, like question mark. But
yeah.
How are Jake's stats? Jake only played one map, as you said. Like this is such a small sample size. He's in the cutoff of not played enough.
Yeah, if you only played a single map this weekend, you wouldn't be on here yet.
Yeah. And so like I think I asked this before, but so it's like only 30 people. Is that just like? Is that because 15 teams played? No, but then there's more players for more than that kind of stuff.
Yeah,
so
because of subs and stuff.
Yeah, but did they all have only perfectly 30 people, or is there like 33 on some? And because surely they didn't all have 30, right? That would be such a weird coincidence of only 30 players played for each role.
Brett B. Bretterson asked, could you come up with a feeding metric? I would look at the first deaths dashboards in the stats lab for that.
Yeah.
The Real Silvos asks, have you tried to feed random ladder data into Watson? No, because the ladder data is formatted in a very different way than OWL data, and there is way, 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 way too much of it. So it's very hard to work with.
That would take forever.
It would be cool, though. It's something I want to explore in the future. Anything else? And you can kick me off at any time if you want.
There you go. This is interesting. Whenever you need to go, that's fine.
I'm technically off today for some reason. Matt says it's just showing top 30, so I guess that's okay.
Wobble, motherfucker.
What about reset deaths? You're not gonna reset. You're not gonna have a reset death that's the first death in a team fight, right? Unless it's some like.
I think people are saying like, oh, should it count as a death if it's a reset? If you're reset deathing, it's usually because your team is dead and your death is gonna matter just as much.
That was my logic with it too when I was coming up with stuff like this. Like, you usually. And the deaths that are valuable are more like the stall deaths that keep a point alive, less so than the reset ones, because the reset ones kind of already mean that you're losing that team fight, right?
Yeah.
How is data fed to Watson? I don't know. Ask smarter people than me that work on networking and that sort of shit. I don't know how that works. I did kind of curate the stats that get sent to them. We send them pretty much everything. There's just in the OWL data, there's actually some random stats that like snuck in there that are totally worthless. Like there's some Winter Wonderland like May snowball shit in there. There's some like Yeti Winston stats in there. There's some Lucio Ball stats in there.
Perfect.
So ignore those.
No, those are the numbers I want. What do you mean?
Average time to charge alt is a stat that goes into it. I think. What happens when a player has more than one role like Violet? Yes, we talked about this earlier, but it's a weighted average of both of their roles rolled up into the overall.
Yeah, so like his Violet's DPS is 93, but his support is like 110. So it's like it sort of combines it, but they also have a different weighting for each one.
Yes, all-star games are very important. No, they're not actually in this. Are there any other visualizations planned in the current table format? We've talked about some. I don't know if they're happening sooner or later or at all. So that probably doesn't really help you.
Yeah, I think
definitely been talking about it.
Yeah, from what they like, this isn't like the final product. Like they still want to like, we need to put more data into it, and like the season will keep going and stuff like that. But I wouldn't say like this is gonna change a little bit as time goes on, and the stats will get better.
Yeah,
and better.
this is a really big partnership with IBM, and if this was the only thing that we came out of it, that would be kind of a waste. So
Yeah.
it's definitely an all year we're gonna be
Wubba
adding stuff to it
motherfucker.
kind of thing.
Yeah.
Does Watson think DKs deserve PI over Paddock? I think that is true according to the most recent like PI chart, but we'll see.
Don't be ridiculous. Don't be ridiculous. Don't use the numbers.
Does Ben prefer Gaga or Django? I unfortunately did not see any Gaga play yesterday because I wasn't awake at.
You're
4 in the
lucky.
morning or
We're
whenever it
about to
was.
watch some Gaga play. So just tune in, use your Twitch Prime, and settle in. So
Yeah, I think that's a good segue. How about you want to get back to it?
Yeah, I'll get back into it. Thank you very much for joining and helping us explain this. Like, I hope you guys, the fans and all that kind of stuff, appreciated Ben coming in. He actually knows more about this than pretty much anybody else that you would ever get access to. So everyone say thank you, Ben. And I hope you guys learn a lot from it because it should help you. As he said, it's a little light right now on the website, but it'll only get better.
Right on. Have a good time. Have a good one.
Later, Ben.